What is it you want, Barry? What do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Come with me if you want to live.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
The Force will be with you, always.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 20th Century Geek. I'm your regular host, Scott Weatherly, and we're going to be going to the past and then to the, well, I won't say the present, still the past. We're going to be doing Then and Again. We're doing the film remake, and I am joined by Dan the Man, Dan Bors.
Spider Dan of the Secret Bors. Yes, I am here, and we're going to get nice and stuck into these houses that are haunted and on top of hills.
That's right. They're all overlooking. Well, I think they're supposed to be overlooking Los Angeles, both of them. But yes, we're going to be talking about House on Haunted Hill, the 1959 Vincent Price classic, in my opinion, one of my favorite films, and the 1999 remake with Geoffrey Rush and a whole host of that person from the 90s.
Yes, it is a cast.
Yeah,
I don't think I'd ever pictured them all together in one film, but here we are.
It's different. You know, I'm sure there might have been that thing of from '59 when people were like, "Oh, that person," but this was definitely sort of that late '90s, early 2000s cast of, "Oh, I saw them in something else,"
and they were better in it as well.
yeah. Well, the one thing I will say is Ali Larter. We will get to Ali Larter. And I will say I had like an early 2000s crush on Ali Larter, but like, yeah, she has been in good stuff. I mean, she's sort of quite fundamental to like Final Destination and
yeah.
That. But yeah, maybe
she was great in Heroes. I used to watch Heroes quite a lot, and she was brilliant in that.
Yes, so she has been good. But we'll get to this one. But yes, so we are talking about. So let's start before we do the comparison. We will go back to 1959, and this is a William Castle directed film, known for other such things as The Tingler, 13 Ghosts, and his way of sort of trying to make films an experience. That was the point. Sort of what else could he do? For example, when he had made The Tingler in the same year with Vincent Price, he would put a buzzer under the chairs in the cinema, so when things happened, the chairs would shake, and they'd be sprayed with things. And for this one, he had something called a Emergo or Emergo. Is what he did, and so towards the end of the film, a skeleton would appear from above the screen and sort of come over the audience and rattle and make noise and things.
I don't know why, but you're describing all of these effects in very sexual ways, Scott. I don't know if that's the vibrating seats. I'm sure a lot of people went for second visits.
I was going to say, yeah. Everyone's like, Tingler's doing really well.
I wonder why. full audience of women just.
William Castle really popular with the ladies. 1950s housewives just seem to be, coming out of themselves. But yes, this is this sort of film. So it was this stars. I'll quickly go through the list. It features obviously Vincent Price as Frederick Loren, Carol Omar as Annabelle Loren, Richard Lang, Caroline Craig, Alicia Cook, and Julie Mitchum as the guests that are invited to join Vincent Price and his wife. In their tumultuous relationship. And the idea is that he is obviously a multimillionaire. And if they stay the night, if they spend the entire night and they leave in the morning, they will each be given £10,000. And this is meant to be his wife's party, but he has orchestrated it so that it's sort of a game that each person that's been invited needs money for different purposes. And so he just wants to manipulate them. So it's an interesting film in the fact that really, like in this film, the main two people, I would sort of say, the pivotal people of this, both sort of Vincent Price as Frederick Loren and Carol Omar as his wife Annabelle, are both quite detestable people.
But they are entertaining, though.
Yeah.
I love. I'm a big fan of Vincent Price. Anyway, he's, no matter what he's in, there's always something. There's like a charm. There's something debonair about him.
Yes.
calculating and fun, and he's always got a kind of a wry smile and a wink like throughout any performance, no matter what he's in. There's always an element of fun that you can have.
Yeah,
and
totally.
he's having a blast here, and he's kind of a bit cool and collected in this one. Actually, I quite like it. It's a little bit different from a lot of his performances.
Yeah, it's a little bit more subdued than sort of, especially sort of, you know, coming in the next year, he would start his and we will get some of this, but his sort of post cycle that he did with Roger Corman, and then he went on in the 70s to do sort of some of the camp, sort of like, you know, the horror became more camp, but he's definitely more sort of subdued in this. And I like that he's debonair. I like the way you describe that. He's sort of calculated and sort of suave.
Very suave, yeah.
Yeah. And I love that. But he's got like a mean streak as well. I mean, you know, so like he basically assaults his wife, like he grabs her hair and pulls her, like, you know, pulls her head back. And there's a few times when you're just like, oh right, okay, well, you know,
it's really interesting because it's kind of like, you know, like two people and you have another person's like the third wheel or the fifth wheel or what have you, and it's almost like he's like, oh no, I want 7 wheels. I want 8 wheels. Let's bring all these people into our problem, into our marital affair. And it's a lot of kind of conniving and baiting and, you know, wordplay and stuff. There's a lot of intelligence between those two characters as well, and I love the dynamic. I think they're my 2 favorite performances in this.
Oh yeah,
because I think like there's a couple of characters in this which, I mean, I'll be honest. I can't even remember if the old lady who's invited. I can't remember her name.
Ruth Bridges is
the
character name. Yeah,
I don't feel like she kind of needed to be there. No. Really, there was, because we didn't get her backstory, but she was in a rush to get the money. But that's kind of it. Nothing really happens to her. She's not involved in much of the action or the set pieces. So it's kind of like,
I'm sure they forget she's even in this film for like like there's a portion in the second act like where the other characters keep turning up and she's just in the background, and you're like, whoever wrote this script completely forgot that she was in this film for a large portion. And then at the end of it, she's got several lines, and they were like, oh shit, I better put Ruth down, like give her some lines or something.
Oh shit, there were more people in this.
Yeah.
Fuck. But yeah. I just, you know, she was fine in the role, but I just needed either a bit more context to why she was there and why she needed that money. And I think one of the problems with this film is I think it's just a little bit too short.
Yes.
It's only an hour and like 15, maybe?
Yes.
Hour and 13,
hour and 15 minutes, yeah.
So I do think we could have had just a touch more kind of character stuff, and again, I wanted to see a bit more of the greed aspect. I think the premise is great. I think the idea, the premise, whether you include ghosts or not, it's still interesting.
Well, it's almost like an Agatha Christie story, isn't it? It's like one step away. It's a step between like an Agatha Christie story and a haunted house film. Like that's what it is.
Well, I was going to say, William Castle was doing noir films. Like that was his like bread and butter. And he got really bored and really jaded of it, and it was just like, it's the same old shit. And that's when he started doing these films, and he was like, I'm gonna do something, shake it up. I'm gonna, you know, do things live in the theater while the film's playing, and, you know, I'll introduce it, I'll do this, I'll do that. And, you know, and actually this film was such a success that Alfred Hitchcock said, oh, there's an audience for horror. Yeah, maybe I'll make a little film called Psycho.
Yeah,
we'll see how that does. And there you go. And that's, you know, that gave birth to various imitators. Arguably, you could say it gave birth to the slasher genre.
I was going to say,
yeah. Like, you know, and we discussed that on my podcast, me and Dennis. Like, what is the original slasher film? And Psycho is definitely in the discussion. But there you go, and that kind of makes sense with the idea that he's, you know, there's all this kind of, again, the wife is a very much a femme fatale type.
Yes.
So we see a lot of that and her play, and obviously she's playing away. Spoilers for the film, but she's playing away with another person. So there's a lot of those kind of noirish dynamics going on, which I think adds to a lot of the kind of drama and the suspense of the film itself. But yeah, I could have just done with a bit more character stuff.
No, I agree. I think, you know, that those sort of character interactions and a little bit of maybe even sort of like, you know, manipulation or Machiavellianness between the characters, sort of like, you know, would have been quite interesting. Because if anything, as you say, Vincent Price and Carol Omar, they are the pivotal parts of the film. But they're clearly having the most fun. You know, they're the characters have got like, oh, we can do all this stuff, and it's great. I mean, Carol Omar, like you said, don't worry about spoilers. Like the point of this is we're having a talk up. So this is what like a 70-year-old film. So I think we can.
Yeah, true. And it's widely available on YouTube. It's in the public domain. Yeah. Anybody can see it.
Yeah. So go watch it. It's good.
Yeah.
But like when Carol Omar sort of like, you know, gets to fake a death and do all that sort of stuff. And when she comes back, and I'm just like, oh, she's loving doing this. Like it's clearly like a barrel of laughs. And so it's clear there is like you said about there's a sparkle in the eye, like a twinkle in the eye about everything. You know, with those that are making this, that like this is supposed to be fun. Like although they're leaning into horror, and it's more of a thriller than a real true horror.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But it's definitely sort of leaning into that fun because there's bits that like make like no sense as well. But I kind of love because you said before, like, you know, is the house haunted or not? And you know that is a part of it. I mean, you know, there's a character Watson Pritchard who I kind of love. I love this character. Like he's this sort of just sort of like almost like Weasley little guy who owns the house, and it's from him that Vincent Price has rented for the evening to do this thing, and he's like 7 people have been killed in this house, and he sort of lists off all these things, and basically he's like, if you would, you know, when you've done like if you've been to a theme park, if you've been to like one of these things for like a Halloween horror night, like he's the kind of person that all of a sudden just pops out and sort of like, you know, he says, well, they killed them, but they never found their heads, and then he disappears again, and you're like, what? Who was that? You know,
I like to call these characters the crazy Ralph, you know, from Friday the 13th.
Yeah, exactly what it is. Yeah,
like, you're a death curse.
Yeah,
it's a death curse. You know, and it's always this warning and stuff, and things will happen. And this is this character. His character is the only one that returns. Well, minus the couple.
Yes.
In the next one as well, in the 1999 one, which I think was a good shout. I think you do need some kind of character like that.
He's the doomsayer, isn't he? Sort of thing. He's the exposition piece as well. Like he's the reason.
Absolutely.
He's the reason everyone thinks the house is haunted, and I kind of like that though. That he is that sort of thing of like it was. I think it's his brother and his wife, or I can't remember. I think that was who were killed, and there's others. And it's almost like the ghost story becomes like there's 2 films going on at one point.
At war with each other.
Yeah, slightly. Because there is the sort of the thriller about the sort of the warring, you know, like War of the Roses kind of sort of Michael Douglas and what's it?
Kathleen Turner.
Kathleen Turner, yeah. That kind of thing, you know, of that warring. And then there is actually this thing of these people staying in a house that may or may not be haunted. And they sort of just seem to happen at the same time. Like when they have a tour of the house, there's a big blood stain on the ceiling, and you know, and he's like, "Oh, don't." This is what happens to Ruth Bridges. Like the only thing he says to her, "Oh, don't stand under it," and she gets blood on her hand. And you're like, "Oh, that is kind of weird and supernatural," or you know, that is kind of odd. And it happens again later, and you're like, "Oh, okay, that's kind of cool." And then there are things that disappear and reappear. And then you have sort of the what are they called? Like the caretakers of the house as well. The old couple.
Oh yeah.
That, like, you know, they're wonderful, and they're like, you know, so you can't see how going. Like, the chandelier falls down, and there's other bits as well. So you're like, oh, there is something going on. Like, you know, is the house haunted? And it's never really resolved or addressed beyond a certain point. It sort of just transitions into this other film, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Well,
yeah, it's kind of. But I guess you're kind of thinking that maybe Vincent Price or the wife has kind of set it up, maybe.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I do quite like. I will say, even though I do think you could have excised her completely, the older lady, I do like that she's, you know, trying to rub the blood off. You know, it's very very Shakespearean to me, very Macbeth, which I quite enjoyed. It's, you know, out damn spot and all that. I just I dug that little thing, and I think there's some of the effects I think are pretty good, like and some of the, so I mean, part of it is a bit like you know, remember that Simpsons episode? It's like right, we're doing a dating video for Flanders, star wipe. It's like we've got all the wipes and there's a little bit of that, like it's like, oh, it's my first film and I can do these effects, but fair play, it was back in the 50s, you know, he's not I don't think he was that experienced with these kind of doing these kind of spooky films and these effects and stuff. So, and again, like I've never made a fucking film, so I can't fucking talk.
Yeah.
But I enjoy the kind of corny, spooky, kind of kooky aspect of the film. It's not something that's going to scare you. It's not it's not something that'll terrify you, but it's something you'll have fun with, definitely.
Kooky is a great word to describe parts of this film. I think that's a really good word. It has one of my favorite scares of all time. That's not scary, but it's still brilliant, and it just makes me kind of laugh because I love how it works in this film. So two of the characters are the sort of like this young couple. There's a fighter pilot or like a test pilot, which is clearly was like a major thing at this period in time because not soon after you'll have Hal Jordan become the Green Lantern as a test pilot, right? And then you have what's her name? Caroline Craig plays Nora Manning, who's sort of like she's the sort of secretary that works for one of Vincent Price's companies. And they're sort of looking around for this thing because they're sort of searching around, and they go down to the wine cellar and they've got all the rooms and there's all this stuff in the wine cellar, and they've I'm trying to think of all the lead up to it. Basically, she's in a room on her own, and the guy's gone off, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, like she's seen a ghost, like she's seen something, this crone appear out of the dark and then go back again, and then they've gone back down, and all of a sudden, like one point, she turns and there's just an old woman leering at her. Like just going, eh! And it's like brilliant, yeah. And it's sort of like she's blind, but she's sort of like snuck up on this young woman. It's just one of my favorite things. Like I could watch it as a GIF like, over and over and over again. It's just wonderful.
I agree. I think it's hilarious and brilliant and bizarre and weird, like you were saying, the unexplained stuff. Like he gets locked. I think the lead up to this was he gets locked in a room in the wine cellar. Somebody knocks him out, or something knocks him out, and then they can't open the door. They open the door, and he's like, "Ooh!" And then they come back down after he's all patched up by the doctor, and they're checking for any openings or secret passageways, which they don't discover. But again, they discover that
they sort of do because they're both knocking it. Oh, that sounds right. Oh, that sounds weird.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so they basically go, oh, there's something hollow there. And again, it never gets picked up again.
No, exactly. Gone.
Yeah.
But then we're in the other room while he's like, I'm gonna knock on this side, you're gonna knock on that side. And then she's been in that room for some time. They were both in that room. They didn't see this woman, and then all of a sudden she glides across and scares that, like she's got all this horrible stuff on her face. Her eyes are white, entirely
she's
white.
Blind, isn't she? Yeah.
So she's got these old freaky hands, and she's literally making a face where, like, why would a blind woman, not knowing anybody is there, make that face and put those hands up like a witch? Like, what, for what reason? And then she glides. It's not a walk; it's a glide. Nora says she floated out of here. And he's like, I just came out the other door. I would have seen her. So again, that's unexplained as well. Like, it's a lot of kind of, there's a lot of like happenstance and just a lot of stuff. Just they don't. It's not like one of these things where it's like, it's a Scooby-Doo where they reveal it and they reveal how it works.
Yeah.
It's basically just like, these things occurred.
Move on. Yeah. Well, there's one trick at the end of it, like, because obviously the whole thing sort of pins at the end. Is the idea is they're trying to scare people enough. That's one of the points is sort of like, Vincent Price is doing this one thing, but his wife Annabelle is doing this other thing of sort of like trying to scare people enough into being in certain places so that she can kill her husband because she is with the psychiatrist. But there's one point where like you have her floating outside of the window, and the rope comes in.
Oh God,
and twists round Nora's legs and stuff. And I'm going like, is that a setup? Is that unexplained? Like, I don't see how that works. Like, it clearly works because it's a special effect, but there's part of me going like, I don't understand. Like, what is this in the film? Like, but I don't care because it's still kind of fun.
It's a great effect. It looks great, but I had the same thought. I was like, How would they do this? Like, how would they even work this? How does she get out of the building when there's all bars on the window and all this other stuff? How does she get in position? How is she not like? How is she floating? And how does that rope wrap round? But yeah, it looks great.
It looks great. Yeah,
it's almost like an Italian horror film where they're like, doesn't make sense, but it looks good.
Oh no, 100%. That's what this is about. I mean, this is about sort of like giving people the creeps and sort of jump scares and stuff. Like that's clearly the point. So with the plot almost comes like there's a plot, and then like making that have any continuity or sense is so secondary. Because if you were to ask, I'm sure if you were to sort of talk to William Castle about this, like even in the day, like you'd be pulling we were pulling these plot holes, and it'd be like, what's your problem? Like, that's not the point. Like, did you enjoy it? Oh yeah, I love the film. Right, like, shut up then. I don't see what your problem is. Like, that's clearly sort of, it's more of a sort of a ride, isn't it? Like they're there to give you sort of scares.
Yeah, I guess it's almost like a scare maze, like there is now, like all the kind of scare attractions and stuff. It's live, it's in person, it's in your face. And I guess it's that bridge as well between live theatre and film as well. They were trying to, it's almost like they're trying to bridge the two together. So, I appreciate that. I appreciate good special effects. So, I mean, and, back in the day before, we're spoilt now with all the special effects and stuff. But back in the day, it must have been quite impressive to see. I mean, people jumped out of the way of that train, didn't they, when they first showed a train coming towards the cinema screen. So it must have been maybe almost a similar impact as well.
Oh, I'm sure this has sort of like this certain one that old woman creeping up on someone. I'm sure there's people that were like, "Oh," and their popcorn went up, and
all that
kind of stuff. I mean, the thing is that you say we are watching this film. It is sort of it's 1960, so is it 60 years old? This film, and audiences and viewers have been, we're more sophisticated. We're now, like you say, we're spoiled for special effects. There's just like like you say, there's a real charm. There's still a charm to this film. Even the opening of this film, there's certain things I can't get past. The opening of this film, when you have sort of like Watson Pritchard's head float up, he's got that sort of like, looks like Holly from Red Dwarf. And he comes up and he gives sort of like that backstory of the house and all sorts of stuff. And then Vincent Price's head sort of comes up and gives his sort of backstory as to why he's invited these people. It's sort of, and it's sort of like, there'll be drinks and there'll be food and fun and maybe a little murder. And you have that sort of thing. It's all sort of very, like, charming, debonair.
It's got a wry sense of humor about it as well.
Yeah, it has. It doesn't take itself too serious. But those heads from, all I could picture, and I'm sure it was in Father Ted, was like Dougal's head sort of coming up and like, but looking confused and then sort of like just disappearing off. Like, I don't know what this is about. And it just feels like there's a silliness to it now that I'm like, this has been parodied so often now that like the parody has almost become like the norm. And so but it still works for me. This film still works for me, where I'm sort of like it's. And I think
you have to embrace the camp of it all. I think,
yes,
it is very campy. It's very, like we said, kooky and weird. But as long as you're open to that experience and that ride, and even before the floating heads come up, we have that kind of almost that soundscape almost where it's just the and all the ghosty noises and chains and everything and like that was, I think that as well was quite influential, because I think there was loads of records that came after this where it was like
soundscapes,
spooky sounds and things. So and that's probably where we get most of these sound effects from nowadays that people use on stuff. It's probably those records and things that we still use.
Probably actually, yeah. But it's an interesting point to make about how old this film, what you got to be on board for the ride, because as well, this sort of, like we say, it's 1959. This film came out, and it's sort of like pre what people consider sort of like that mid 60s to be sort of the birth of like modern cinema. So this is pre that. This is pre sort of like modern cinema. So, and it is definitely of a different era. Like you watch this and you go like, oh, okay, this still has that sort of feel of those. You could watch a film from like pretty much from like the late 30s through to the late 50s, and there's still that sort of, there's a style there that sort of is maintained, and it still very much has that going on. But I'm kind of liking that. I kind of dig all that kind of stuff. It's there's a fun to it that I really enjoy. But
But it feels like he's like William Castle is going into the experimental a little bit, like we were talking about.
Oh yeah,
I think he's definitely. It's not like, and I think that's why he was so bored, probably doing these noir films back to back, and the same bloody story over and over again. I love a good noir story, but if you make enough of them, you're gonna get or see enough of them, you're gonna get bored. So I think there are those, like we have those elements, but he's going, but what about spooky?
Yeah.
And it's almost like a mash of the two, almost like kind of. I don't think it's as synergetic as that, if that's even a word. But it's like some of it really works and some of it doesn't really work. I think, but like on the whole, it's still like it's short. That's mercifully short. Even if you hated it, it's over before you even know it.
Yeah.
I think the ending is a bit too sudden, probably, but I think a lot of older films have that. They're like, that's the end of the story. Bam.
They're still trapped in the house at the end of the film. Not dawn yet.
For all we know, they might have killed him, or he might have killed them.
Yeah, we will talk about the end in a second because I have that same thing. But you are right. I mean, what I'd like to say is about William Castle. You are very right in the sense that there's clearly this feeling of he knew it was almost coming to the end of an era, and he's experimenting and looking for what film will be next. Because there was this is the era of like 3D and all these other gimmicks as well, isn't it? So they were looking to see what cinema could be, and it just so happened that they were in the next sort of 5 years. They were like, oh, it's going to be gritty and really weird, and you go, oh, cool, we're going to make films like Rosemary's Baby, or sort of like and eventually like horror films are going to become like The Exorcist, and people are like so it does definitely feel like that sort of like thing with the experimentation. Let's talk about the ending though, because the film does resolve so the idea is again that they want to kill. This is the thing. So Carol O'Mara is looking to wind people up enough so they've been given guns arbitrarily as well.
The party favors,
and I do like the scene because they're in little coffins, which is ace, and like because Vincent Price's characters clearly had them made, which is brilliant. But he's handed out guns to everyone, and so at one point, sort of like Nora Manning is scared. He sort of makes a jump, and she shoots him, and then runs off. Like, oh God, I've killed someone.
There was a bit as well when she sees the wife in the window. She runs out screaming, and then the doctor comes out and says, "Somebody's left their room." And they were like, "Did you hear anything?" And they go, "No." And I was like, she screamed all the way down the stairs because she runs out and she sees the hung wife as well, because she hasn't experienced that because she stayed in the bedroom. And then she continues to scream and run down. And they're like, "Nope, didn't hear a thing." It's like,
these walls are really thick.
Stop knocking on him again. Stop knocking on him.
Yeah, don't make them like this anymore. But she ends up shooting Frederick Lauren, and then runs off. And then that's when you get the twist. You get the reveal that the psychiatrist or the doctor and Annabelle
Lauren,
Annabelle Lauren, or Annabelle Patrick, Annabelle Lauren. It's the other one that's got the long name.
Yeah.
She has been orchestrating this to try and kill her husband. The psychiatrist comes in, but then the lights go out. And one of the things that this is, I want to sort of get to what the other thing that's in the basement. There's a wine cellar, and there's a big trapdoor, and under that trapdoor is a vat of acid. This is a Bond villain kind of level housing. This is amazing, because at one point this vat was supposed to be filled with wine. It was going to be like a wine distillery. They were doing something with it, but he decided to kill his wife. A past resident killed his wife by throwing her in, but his comeuppance came because this acid only dissolves hair and flesh and not bone, which is demonstrated by a rat being thrown in, and you basically get a Halloween decoration come out.
Yeah. I love as well. She almost trips in and goes, "Oh, you were lucky there." And she's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Oh, it's still full of acid." Like, you never removed the acid out of your basement.
Well, even the police didn't. At some point, the police were like, that's really dangerous. Like, we really should get rid of that. It's already been used to kill someone. Like, that should be, So, there's a vat full of acid in the basement. I mean, you think that Frederick Lauren's dead, but the lights go out. And when it comes back, there's nobody there. Both Frederick and the psychiatrist have disappeared. But the vat of acid is open, so you're suggesting that somebody's gone in because you've heard a splash. And then Annabelle comes in looking for the psychiatrist, and from out of the acid appears a skeleton, which then walks around the cellar, and scares her so much that she does trip into the acid, and she is then killed by falling in acid. And then quickly it's revealed that Frederick Lauren has got a massive rig that he has constructed. I don't know. And then that he basically scared her so much she fell in acid. He and then confesses to all the people as they come into the room that the doctor and his wife were planning to kill him, so he killed them first.
And then they don't really react to it. It kind of just goes bum bum bum.
Yeah, and he's like, I shall throw myself on the mercy of the courts, and it is the end. And you say they're still they're still trapped in a house with a known murderer.
Oh dear.
So yeah, but the one thing I'm sort of confused about is, and I know this film doesn't warrant being picked apart because it's just too easy. But did he know that did he understand the whole plan? All right. Or is that skeleton actually the doctor's skeleton that he's then sort of whipped out and added onto some rig? I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those where you're like, how it's like Batman. How much prep time does he have to do all this shit and to make sure and how are they doing? How are they doing their own thing? The wife and the doctor, and then Frederick Lauren is doing his thing without anybody else noticing or knocking on or affecting one or the other. It's ludicrous, but it is fun. I will say that.
Yeah, it's a fantastically fun ending. I mean, the skeleton looks really sort of rickety as it goes around.
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those in a bloody science classroom. It is. It's literally just that.
Yeah, it is. It's totally just that, which is still makes it really fun. And I kind of like what I like is I'm supposed to assume it's she. I think she's supposed to assume it's her husband's skeleton.
Right. Yeah, because I think he says there's a voice.
It's his voice that comes over. He's you killed me, and I've come back for revenge. But one of the things, again, and this is the final thing I'll pick on it, Vincent Price is 6'5" tall. He's a big guy. That skeleton's shorter than her. So at one point, I would be a bit like, that's the acid shrank all the bones.
You can't question the logic of ghosts, Scott.
No, that's true.
You can't question them.
No.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think I would have been that scared as she was. She was terrified. Yeah. The film definitely showed its age where a woman started panicking and screaming. They went, "She's hysterical." I was just like, "Fucking all right, here we go." And then he goes later on. He goes, "No, actually, I was wrong. She's not hysterical."
Yeah,
because I've seen stuff too. So, so that's the only reason I don't think she's hysterical.
the misogyny of the psychiatrist. He's like, well, all women are clearly hysterical. And then he sees something of, no, it's not hysteria. It's clearly sanity because I'm sane. Yeah. 1950s, you crazy place.
Crazy times.
But it is good fun. That's the thing. I do still like this film. And even though I can pick it apart and it is slightly silly and stuff. Like you say, there's a real charm to this. And what I would say is as well, there's a colorized version of this knocking about as well. So if you do struggle with
black and white,
black and white, and it is there's an upgraded version, and there's an upgraded black and white, and there's an upgraded colorized version as well. So do go check it out because it's a Vincent Price classic. It is really good fun. I mean, it has one of my there's a great line when Vincent Price and his wife are talking about their relationship, I suppose, and he sort of says, "Remember that time that you tried to poison me?" And she's like, "Yes, good times. It was a good party." They're really sort of like you say, they know they hate each other, but they're still kind of like
it's almost like a reverse kind of Gomez and Morticia Addams almost.
Yes.
Because Gomez and Morticia Addams are all into dark and disturbing stuff, but they really love each other. But these people are like putting on the kind of face of normality, but inside and their feelings are that they fucking hate each other. So Yeah, it's fascinating. I would love to have just seen a lot more scenes of them together, having that banter. I think that would have been great. But
they have got real chemistry. Like they work
absolutely,
really well together. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they really bounce off each other, and there's something a little bit sexy about it as well. There's a little bit of I don't know what it is.
Oh, I can imagine that when they first met, like the bedroom fun was probably like dynamite. That was it, and it's just worn off. Like that's the problem.
Yeah.
When she's got, I think it's his fourth wife, and there is the rumors that his other wives all died of heart attack. So less said about that, the better.
But yeah, I guess. I mean, I think the film does have just an air of mystery in general. Like, not that a mystery needs to be solved, but just an air of, like we said, things are unexplainable. Or how did that work? And how did they manage that? And how do we, how do the doors open? How do the caretakers get in and out? And all that sort of stuff. So I guess that again, that's kind of part of the fun, I think.
It's
just that, like you said, don't pull it apart, don't question it too much. Even though we have done a bit of that ourselves, like you said, I'm sure there's a riff tracks or there's a
there is
a mystery science theater. I imagine people have done it and probably much better than both of us could do anyway. But
But it's the thing is, when you can do that kind of thing, that sort of, to me, highlights some of the fun of it.
I mean, I often just make fun of stuff that I love anyway. That's kind of the charm of it. Like, I'll bring Andy on and we'll watch the Ewoks, and even though they're both terribly shit films, I'll still kind of enjoy them on some level, and there'll be some enjoyment in that. So yeah, it's when you poke fun at stuff, unless it's just fucking shockingly shit. But I don't know. Maybe they're borderline for me. It's still Star Wars, but it's not quite
on the periphery. But yes, yes.
But I think so.
But anyway, so that's the 1959 version, and it was put away, as was 13 Ghosts and others and things, and then like basically for sort of 40 years later, some studios thought those film needs to be remade, and they did. They remade. There was like a spate. This was the spate of like the horror remake sort of.
They were called. I think they were called Dark Castle Entertainment. I think it was, and I think it was Joel Silver, Robert Zemeckis, and a few other people. And they were like, "Yeah, we'll remake all of William Castle's films. And we'll do a new spin on them." And I think quite quickly they did 2 films, and they were like, right, we need to do some original shit.
Yeah, these aren't quite working. Yeah, they did 13 Ghosts and House on Haunted Hill. Now, what I will say is, and I know we're going to tear this one a new one as well, but as you say with the Ewoks, both this 1999 House on Haunted Hill and 13 Ghosts, with Tony Shalhoub, and it's got like it's one of those where you go like, oh, 90s cast, amazing.
Well, Shannon Elizabeth, Matthew Lillard, a few others. What's his name? Salieri, what's his name? F. Murray Abraham. He's in it as well.
And he's great in it.
Yeah.
It's wonderfully crap, but I love that film, 13 Ghosts, and I kind of love this one as well. And there are reasons for why I love this film, though. Like, again, it's sort of so House on Haunted Hill, 1999, starring or directed by William Malone, starring Jeffrey Rush as Stephen Price. I like what you did there. Famke Janssen as Evelyn Stockard Price, Taye Diggs, Peter Gallagher, Chris Kattan, Ali Larter, Bridget Wilson. So it's basically sort of like a bit of a who's who of late 90s thing.
Stars.
Not quite stars. That's probably a bit of a point. But like, they're
all shaking their fist at you now.
Yeah, just let's be fair. Apart from sort of like Jeffrey Rush and Famke Janssen, who sort of went on and had like proper career. I mean, Jeffrey Rush is a proper actor, and Famke Janssen had quite a career. But like Taye Diggs and Peter Gallagher and Ali Larter, like, let's be fair. I liked, I had a crush on Ali Larter. They're all slightly above soap opera star actors, to be fair. Yeah. I recently watched Equilibrium, another sort of early 2000s blinder, and in that, like, Taye Diggs versus Christian Bale. It's just, there are times in that film you're like, wow, like, Christian Bale takes everything serious, and Taye Diggs is trying to compete with him, and it's just hilarious to watch. So that'd be something that I've got to do at one point.
Oh man, I love that film. It's great. So
it is,
cool.
yeah. Any film that can make up Gun Carter deserves an Oscar, as far as I'm concerned.
To be fair, like we see it in John Wick now, don't we? It's kind of it's a gun Carter. It's an almost martial art form of firing guns and stuff. So it definitely have some sort of origins there, I reckon.
Yeah. It's all about Christian Bale. Starts everything. But this film is basically a similar thing. However, they really lean into the ghosts in this one. Jeffrey Rush's Stephen Price is a theme park and sort of entertainment millionaire. He has a theme park, which is shown at the beginning, which again, I'm not entirely sure how this thing works on a repeatable basis, but it has a roller coaster which literally fires off a cart full of dummies to scare the car behind it. Literally launches it into space, like launches it into the air, and they show that it's filled with dummies, which is fine. But I don't know how you then get like a damaged cars back on the track. Like it makes, but it's fine. It's fine. That's good. That bit makes no sense.
Again, very much in line with the previous film. Don't worry.
Oh yeah. Don't worry about it. However, the other one where they go up in a like a lift, and then it looks like it's falling, and it's shown to be like a TV screen and a fan, all sorts of stuff. I kind of like that. I thought that was a really clever idea.
It was James Masters, wasn't it? Spike. Yeah. He's the cameraman.
And I thought that was quite a nice little. I was like, oh yeah. When Buffy that was at the same time as Buffy as well. So
I think so. Yeah, 99. So yeah, he probably filmed that and then went on and did Buffy.
Yeah,
it was season 2 he was in, wasn't it?
Yes.
So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So yes, yeah. But then he's right. A similar thing. He and his wife do not get on, and so he's decided he's going to have. She's given a list for a party. He's going to just do a reduced list for his own entertainment. But then the ghosts. It's basically the ghosts.
Internet ghosts.
Internet ghosts. Again, in the 90s, computers bad. Internet bad. The ghosts go onto the internet, get into his computer, and they rewrite their own list. And then the people that they write turn up to the house on Haunted Hill, and it includes obviously Chris Kattan, who is again Watson Pritchett, and he is the caretaker of this house. And it's they've extended the history of this house. So he used to live there as a kid. However, this house, which is the architecture, where if this place it looks amazing because it's a fantastic design, but it's a house on top of an abandoned hospital on top of a grave.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
when can I move in?
Yeah. There are things in this house that because this is what we'll get to. At one point, like Chris Kattan gives them a tour. They finally get into the house and they have like a tour of the house, and they go down into the basement. They have the as you walk in, there's like this massive glass stained glass window that eventually shatters. But like the house is really like 1930s Art Deco, elaborate.
Oh yeah,
like, it's beautifully well. The set is amazing.
It does look like something out of like Batman the Animated Series.
Yes.
It looks exactly like something like that.
And it's beautifully designed. I love the sets in this for the house are really cool. But then he's like, do you want to see the rest of the house? And you're like, all right. And they literally go down like a flight of stairs that's 5 steps. And all of a sudden there's these like peeled, mummified bodies in glass cases. And he's like, yeah, we had these in the basement when I was a kid. And you're just like, sorry, what? Oh yeah, this is the entrance to where it was a psychiatric hospital and they did terrible experiments on people. And you go, oh right, well I'm sure your family must have been sensible enough to clear out all the electrical equipment and those dangerous things. Nope. we left everything down here.
The house is evil. Let's get out.
Yeah, and he is that same person. He's your sort of the doomsaying exposition device who's basically sort of knows all the ghosts and all this other stuff. And so yeah, you go around and you find out that there was a doctor played by the wonderful Jeffrey Combs.
Oh yes, my favorite.
Massively underused and in this film.
Yeah, I was just like, just have him like, I don't know, like show a video of him, or have him appear as the ghost, make him the main ghost at the end, or like a version of that. I was like, why are you wasting him? He's quality, and every time he turned up, it put a smile on my face. Because like, he's even in this minor role, he's still absolutely smashing it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, Jeffrey Combs is like, yeah, he's so. I was so disappointed when he's not in at the end, because I thought that was the end. I thought like, it's the doctor comes for him, and I was kind of disappointed when you're like, oh, okay, it's not that. Oh well. But yeah, he's in it as in different roles. But you've got this whole like maze of things under the house that Chris Kattan appears to have been aware of from when he was a child.
Yeah.
We've all had that, haven't we? We've all had somewhere where they say like, lock latchkey kid, just come off and play in the psychiatric hospital under the house.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, that's right. Just come back when I call you for dinner. Go play with the ghosts. Go play with the electrocution therapy equipment. And so they do. They've got this thing, and basically they're locked in. The house locks them in, and again, but they're all going to get. These people are going to get $1 million if they stay for the night. That's the party game. And much like the previous film, Famke Janssen as the wife doesn't want to come to the party. And again, same twist. It's all very similar. But the idea is she's going to scare them enough into shooting Jeffrey Rush. But this is like, this one takes away the possibility. There's no sort of like, is it not haunted? Like, this is very much haunted.
It is on Haunted Hill.
Yes.
I'm glad. Again, this show's about like remakes and reinterpretations, reboots, what have you. And I like that they went, okay, that, but different. Let's lean into the ghost thing, and I appreciated that, because I was like, okay, this is, at least it's not the fucking same thing beat for beat. And the same scares, the same ideas, but you still have the same elements. You still have the party favors, you still have the money. But in this one, he said if they kill off any of the other person, it gets added to the pot. He said,
if anyone dies, like the £1 million is distributed amongst the rest of the survivors.
And again, I would have liked to have seen a bit of, like, oh, maybe I'll kill you, maybe you'll kill me, or maybe we'll work together and we'll do this. Like, there was opportunity for that. But yeah, we didn't quite get that. Again, that's a movie I'm writing in my own head. But what we got, I quite enjoyed. Again, I don't think either of these films are perfect.
No.
In any aspect, but I still had a lot of fun with them. And there wasn't a lot of depth to a lot of the characters. Like, again, I'm pretty sure I didn't know why Taye Diggs was there. I think he was a former baseball player, but I don't think he said why he needs the money or anything. I'm like, I could just do a little bit of that.
That's a really good point, actually. Is one of the things that sort of in the first film, the reason that Vincent Price's character chose them is because through his connections, because of his business, he knows that each one of these people is in financial trouble, and so couldn't refuse $10,000. That's the point. Like, he wants to feel powerful, so he wants to play with them. He wants to sort of, I've got the money, you haven't. I can give you the money, and so it's a power play. That's the point. I think sort of like the Stephen Price character in the Jeff Rush character is looking to do that with his first list, but the ghosts then take over. And what you find out is there was a fire in the hospital. So it's riddled with fire damage as well. Just so for when kids can't playing in it. But some people survived. So there was an event, or there was an incident where this doctor Vault or whatever, played by Jeffrey Rush,
Vanakut,
played by Jeffrey Combs. Sorry, was killed, and so were all these other people. And so the ghosts have reached out through the internet, and the people that were invited are the descendants of the people that survived this fire. And so the only reason Taye Diggs is there is because he's a descendant. But like you say, they've received an invite, and he could have just gone, no.
He could have turned them out. Yeah, why did it? Like, you're not the people I invited. Off your pop.
Either way, like, it could have been like, it could have been like Taye Diggs could have received that invite and then just gone, I'm a former baseball player, I don't need this. I've got money, I'm fine. One's a psychiatrist who seems pretty well to do. I'm pretty sure he'd be like, it seems to be just this lure of money. Just seems to be like, $1 million is going to be enough to get anyone to go and just go, yes, I'm going to get into this hearse and drive to this house with a bunch of people. Like,
and do you think it's a bit of a coincidence that, again, she wrote out a list of guests, he deleted it.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Rush substituted his list.
Yeah.
And then the ghosts rewrote the list themselves and invited these people. Coincidentally, the wife knows the psychiatrist.
That's a good point.
Like that is quite a coincidence.
That's a good point. I hadn't even registered that the ghosts created the list. Yet there is still a
connection.
There's still a murder plot going on. That actually is quite intricate as well.
Yeah. Quite a lot of levels to it, definitely. But, yeah.
That includes her faking her own death and him reviving her. So, maybe it just invited the others and was just sort of like, he just was going to turn up anyway. But again, it's not really explained.
But then again, Jeffrey Rush's character knows about the affair. So... Did the wife and the husband, Jeffrey Rush and Famke Janssen, invite him on both lists? So then maybe the ghost just included it in the third list.
They've got this one's on both of theirs. All right, we'll throw him a bone. We'll include him because they both seem to want him there.
But then the coincidence is that he's also related to the people that killed all the.
That seems to be the case. Like he still seems to be related to this.
That's a lot of coincidences.
It's really the level of sort of like twistiness is really unclear, and obviously, because the other thing as well is that the Ali Lata character isn't the person who was invited. Like the person who was invited was her boss, and so she's impersonating her. So she's not actually. And so, and again, it's one of those things that the moment you realize the moment she identifies as not being actually related, she's the final girl. Like she's going to survive because she's not part of the death crew. But yeah, it's one of those where you sort of like you start to scratch away and you go, this doesn't make a lot of sense. Like it makes, and the twists around some of the stuff in this, because like I say, Famke Janssen sort of gets electrocuted, and or is she? Like, she's doing a lot of work, but she is dead because he has to revive her. And I'm going like, I was really confused. This is what I was confused about. So she disappears, and then she is found on a table, strapped in, and she's got like this headpiece on. She's got the mouth sort of guard so she doesn't bite her tongue, and she's being electrocuted. And they're all going around flipping switches and pulling levers, trying to stop it. And eventually they do. And it's the doctor that declares her dead. So I'm like, cool. But then she is dead. Because later on he comes back. Well, I don't know if she's actually dead, but she might be one of those sort of like comas or something. But he has to inject her with something to revive her. So did she actually get electrocuted? Or like, I don't know at what point did she fall into this thing that then needed to be revived from? I don't understand that either.
Yeah. I don't know if maybe it was like a drug he gave her before and then he had to give her like the antidote, or
it's one of those where sort of they've just gone to such a level of complexity. Like, there is such an easier version of this. Like,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah. It was a bit weird as well because she was technically dead, and he was groping her quite a bit when she was dead. And I was like, oh, what is he? What? I was like, what age rating is this? Because he's going quite far south with his hand. I was like, and then she wakes up and she's like, I haven't been molested. I love you.
Well, not only that, like he injects her in the thigh with this whatever it is, and then like I say, she wakes up, and not only is she sort of like, oh, you weren't molesting me. It's not like, oh, I haven't been dead for half an hour.
Yeah, I haven't got burns or internal damage or anything. I'm totally fine.
Yeah. So, yeah, it does. Then it turns out, she's clearly a psychopath as well, because then she kills the doctor and chops his head off, and it all goes a bit like, I have no idea. Like, again, I'm a bit like, it sort of starts to fold in on itself towards the end, where I'm just like, this is giving me twist after twist after twist, or reveal after reveal, and it's sort of like, yeah, you didn't need all this. Like the ghosts were enough.
Yeah, yeah. There was a lot of kind of opportunity, I think, for again, like I did enjoy seeing more of the dynamic between the Price character and the wife. Yes. We see a lot more of that, and it's a lot more like, you know, it's a bit like kind of a bit more violent, it's a bit more visible, it's a bit more, you know, it's a bit more in your face.
Yes.
Than the kind of subtlety of the previous film, but at least it's different. You know, it's not the same. So I appreciate that. And apparently, like Jeffrey Rush wanted to dress, so he didn't dress as Vincent Price. He dressed as John Waters.
Yes.
So, but then because they were like, oh, we quite like that look, so we'll just say it's a bit more pricey than John Waters. But yeah, it's. Again, there was another character I didn't think we needed was Sonya Blade from Mortal Kombat.
Yes,
with just walking around with a camcorder, and I was like, wow, that is 90s. That camcorder. It's not even one of those foldable ones. It's just like a big,
it's massive,
huge. Like you need a decent sized bag for that thing. It almost. What does it remind me of? Oh, I'll tell you what it reminds me of. Do you remember Goosebumps? Remember the TV show Goosebumps?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you remember the Say Cheese and Die camera?
Yeah.
That massive spacey version. I have no idea why they chose to do that with it as well. Like when I read the book, it was like, oh, it's just a regular camera. But then when I get into that, they're like, it's a fucking toaster. That's what it looks like.
Look at this. It takes both hands to carry this around.
Or whatever noise it made. But yeah, it reminded me a bit of that. I was like, it's just really dates it, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, and she gets this is where people's reactions in this film are a bit weird as well, because she goes missing. She's off looking for things. They hear her scream, and then when they find her, they just find a pile of like a puddle of blood, and then a trail of blood that goes up the wall and disappears like into the ceiling. And they're all like, well, that's bad. Well, I don't know what to do. But they're like, no one's going like, that's really fucking weird. Like there's some that react, but everyone's like, they just seems there's a level of calmness still before it sort of escalates. And I'm just like, I know you're trying to maintain the tension to ratchet it up, but like I think you've gone too far already.
Yeah. Also, they kind of all of a sudden they kind of like the whole money thing gets thrown out the window almost immediately as well. Like the whole competition thing. Like they've set up the rules, they've said this, you do that, you do this, but almost instantly, the second they get locked in, they're like, they literally just throw that away, like plot device. They were just like, no, it doesn't matter anymore until it comes back at the end. And even then, I'm like, I don't know how real that money is. I think that's like Monopoly money from his theme parks.
It's a check made out to cash, isn't it? And they're like, oh, it's 5 because then they've got 5 million to sort of share between Ali Latta and Ty Diggs, are the ones that survive. But I'm still like, can you cash this? Because surely if the police turn up,
that'll be confiscated.
It's evidence, really, isn't it? Like, what are you doing with the envelope? We won it. Well, I'm not sure that stands anymore. Can I have? I think this is evidence. This isn't like motivation. Like you may have killed these people for $5 million.
I'm still waiting for a film, right, that picks up directly after a horror film, and it's just a court case of everything that happened before, and them having to fucking explain why they had all of their friends are dead and they survived, and this other guy with an axe in his head and all this.
But
other stuff.
Supernatural. Think Scream, right? The court case for Scream is just a court case, right? That makes sort of sense. I can imagine sort of Neve Campbell's character and Gail, where they're sort of having to go through that. Fine. I want the court case at the end of like Nightmare on Elm Street. Why is the room full of blood? Why is there a hole in the bed? Like, how did someone in the locked room sort of get slashed up? Like, I want that court case where the lawyer just going,
the weird, like maybe Evil Dead even. Like Evil Dead would be a good one. Why did you kill your girlfriend? Oh, she was a demon. Right, of course. You're going to jail. That sort of thing. Like, that's what I thought about. Like, that's what I thought was funny about Ash versus the Evil Dead is people like chopped up his girlfriend. Why isn't he in jail? Like,
Ashy Slashy. Yeah.
Ashy Slashy, exactly. But yeah, I don't know. Like, the ending, I will say, the ending kind of made me laugh because it was that last line. I was like, I almost predicted it. I was like, they're gonna get outside and then they're gonna be on top of this big thing, the big building, and they're gonna be like, how do we get down from here?
Yeah,
and literally fucking sat. I was like, shit, I could write this.
and have. Yeah. What you do is that because there was a sequel to this as well, The Return to House on Haunted Hill.
Okay.
I've not seen it.
No, neither have I.
It looks horrendously awful. I think it's like 3 point something on IMDb. But it's choose your own adventure, so you can actually do like through it. You can make choices as you go. So it was apparently it was an early adopter of that. But yeah, I would like that film to start with, or at least at some point they get to the house and they open that hatch in the thing, and there's just these two desiccated corpses of the people that sort of like Ty Diggs' corpse, Ali Larter's corpse, where they're just like, well, they survived the ghost, but they ended up actually dying of starvation and exposure on this, you know.
So the Alien 3 of the House
basically kill them off screen, just for utter disappointment.
I think I've got a few friends who say, like with the slasher films, they feel like if you've survived one slasher film, that's your get out of jail free card. You shouldn't be killed in the next one or anything that, because you've proved that you have the metal to do that. But yeah. I guess it does happen quite a lot, doesn't it? It's like, oh, we followed this character, but now we kill him and get a new one.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. We're not even going to show you them. They sort of died off screen. We're going to Sarah Connor them. Is what we're going to do.
Oh, God.
But I want to actually. So I do want to talk about something. We talked about Jeffrey Rush because I do want to talk about this sort of because this sort of runs in parallel with 13 Ghosts because there's a sort of like a style that they gave this Dark Castle gave this a style that I actually really enjoy, and it became again a bit of a cliche. It came up again. I think it was used repeatedly, but that like juddering movement that certain ghosts have, sort of it's used probably a bit overused in 13 Ghosts. But there's a scene in this where you see the doctor, you see the Jeffrey Combs sort of doctor on a TV monitor. And the way that he moves, like that juddering sort of movement, is really, really well created. It's really creepy and really well done. But I like it as well. There's like a sensory chamber, isn't there? That's sort of basically like a massive spinning thing. Yeah. And Jeffrey Rush's character is sort of stuck in that, and it goes off. And then you have like Jeffrey Combs' character coming out. It's sort of like what do they call them when they sort of spin and you see the sort of like it's that sort of thing. It's like
an animated, an animated thing. I can't remember what they're called. I was going to say kaleidoscope, but that's way wrong.
Yeah, but you get what it is. It's like a spinning disc, and because of the way that the way
animated thing,
it animates the images behind it. But I love the way he sort of like he blends through it, and he's just bouncing a ball, and he's just grinning, and it's sort of like but it still looks like a painting and stuff. It's some of that stuff they do is genuinely creepy, and I just really enjoy it. I think it looks great.
I read that a lot of the stuff the ghosts and the images and things that they used, which I think is some of the best stuff, is that it's inspired by Jacob's Ladder.
Yes,
and I can definitely see that. And I know one of the creatures was actually going to be used in Ghost Story. Have you seen that?
Yeah,
Ghost
Dick
Story?
Smith. Yeah, I love Ghost Story. Good film.
Yeah, it's a great film. Really, really good. I think it's aged very well, actually. Ghost Story. I think it's very. I think it might be a Femon film one. I think that one.
That's worth. Yeah, that'd be an interesting conversation.
That would be a lot. There would be a lot to say on that one, without spoiling it. But yeah, there's a face that comes out. I think during that, and that was supposed to be in that, but it got cut for some reason. But yeah, and yeah, it's brilliant. I love that sort of imagery. But the imagery I don't like, as you were talking about a blot earlier, and this is what this is. This is a shit Rorschach thing. So we finally acknowledge that there is a ghostly presence, a vengeful ghostly presence, and that Pritchard was right. Is the house is evil? It's evil, and it comes out of this one room that is like it's been boarded up and blocked off, which is clearly where the main fire started during that opening sequence at the start of the film in 1931, I think it was. And we start like it's them fighting because Jeffrey, like they've killed off Jeffrey, seemingly killed off Jeffrey, shot him to death. but he's got blood packs and he's got a bulletproof vest. He's alive. And then he starts trying to kill her, and he throws her through this wall, and then all the ghosts come out. And apparently the effect was used, it was kind of, it was based on Lovecraft stuff, Lovecraftian ideas, but also it's apparently lots of naked women writhing.
Well, the way, so I basically, because at first I was like, this is shonky CGI, like they've just done something, it looks a bit crap. But basically, what I read about it was it's not, it is computer animated, but what it is, it's lots and lots of film footage that's been spliced together, and actually a lot of it is of the cast and other stuff. So there are people in there in this thing, and then it was like you say, it's designed to be. They say Lovecraftian, right? I've read an awful lot of Lovecraft, right?
I can imagine.
And I was thinking, whenever the people say this, we've really tried to dig into that Lovecraftian idea. I'm going like. Yeah, you haven't.
Yeah, I mean,
it's got tentacles and some stuff, and I've gone like, you've sort of surfaced it rather.
Yeah,
it's an ink blot. It looks like a Rorschach test.
I was going to say, it's exactly that. That's what I saw. I was like, what's it in Peep Show? And he shows him the Rorschach test in Peep Show, and he's like, what do you see? It was like a butterfly, and in his head, he's like, a devouring twat. Massive devouring twat. And I was just like, and I was like, it's like, you'll have seen Halloween 2, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and there's the ink blot in there, and it's like, what do you see? It's obviously clearly that fucking white horse metaphor he's trying to fucking ham fist into that film. God, it was shit, that film. Anyway, but yeah, it's this, and I thought, okay, it's going to absorb Famke Janssen, and maybe she'll become like a ghostly figure, like a black dress or a kind of a spooky thing. But it kind of just eats her, and then it's kind of just like it's like a really shit Mothman or something. It's just
one of the things that's interesting about it is it's not clear what it is in the sense of like, or how tangible it is, because it absorbs Famke Janssen, and it sort of does that sort of thing, and it sort of, there's parts of it that are smoke, and then there's parts of it that look a bit like ink because it's got that liquid flowy stuff to it, and then obviously it's got these writhing figures in it and stuff, but because it seems, it's like, again, it's basically like a metaphor for this film. I said, like, there's too much going on. It's the same thing. They've just given this too many layers. There's too many ideas sort of like woven into this one thing. Where they've got, and you're going, oh look, just roll it back. It could just be a smoke. It could just be, this black mist or this black ink thing that sort of like, it's linked with fire, so smoke makes sense, or like make it ashy or whatever, like do something. But this idea then going like, it looks like H.R. Geiger, it looks like this, it looks like it's Lovecraftian. You go like, it doesn't need all that. It looks like it looks too much. It's overly designed.
Thing. Yeah, I think you're right. And like you were saying, the Lovecraftian, the word Lovecraftian is just whatever kind of you want it to be in a way. Like people just use that. Oh, it's Lovecraftian. I'm like, okay, is it exploring those themes, those ideas that he was exploring? No, it's just got a load of fucking tentacles and shit, and it's coming from another dimension. And I'm like, okay, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm open to the interpretation. Like there's tons of stuff where I'm like, not necessarily Lovecraftian, but maybe a little, or there's this, but it seems almost 2D as well. I just, it didn't feel properly alive to me. It just felt like when it's coming down the hall, it's just coming at them in a 2D fashion.
Yes.
And I was like, it should maybe the best. I'll tell you what the best bit was is when it went under the floor and it started shooting and popping up the floorboards.
Yes,
like that was like, that's great. Like more of that. Like have it go up the walls, maybe. Like the blood went up the walls. So why don't we see it go up the walls and break all the tiles off or something like that? I was thinking what a better finale would have been is if Jeffrey Combs possessed Jeffrey Rush's character. And then you could kind of flip between the two. You could kind of have them doing the performance. You could have like an effect where he's like, slightly
shimmers
coming out of the
between
body.
the two of them. So
yeah, absolutely. And then you've got you get Jeffrey Rush being a villain. You get the Jeffrey Combs coming in and having a bit more of a tangible part in it as well, instead of this kind of weird effect. I just it kind of, I'll be honest, I kind of switched off a little bit.
Yes,
when
I agree. I can see why. I totally see why.
And it's and again when Tay Diggs was like right at the end, he was like, "I'm adopted."
Yeah.
I was like, really? You're pulling out the adopted card. I was like, all right at the last minute, and then he's just got out in time, just barely. Oh no, the ghost, was it the ghost of Jeffrey Rush helps him, or the ghost?
No,
of...
it's the ghost.
Pritchard.
It's Pritchard. It's the ghost of Pritchard. Chris Kattan's ghost, like Force ghost, appears to save the day.
Okay, now
and again, this is one of those things where, like, I said, there's too many ideas in this film, and we've seen ghosts. We know that ghosts exist, but you've only ever seen them. You've not seen them in close quarters, and there's been some interesting scenes, like when Sonya Blade's sort of going around with the camera, the bit where she goes in to look in one of the surgery rooms, and on the camera she can see there's an operation going, and that's a good. And they see her and turn around, but there's nobody actually in the room, just on the film, and I like that. That's a really good thing. So you've had this thing about, okay, well, this is what ghosts are. They've either all you've ever seen them is appear on film or in some warped way in that sensory thing. You've not seen the ghosts interact with the audience, interact with the cast,
the characters in some way. Yeah.
So there's been no sort of like Chekhov's ghost where they've gone, oh, ghosts have these capabilities to interact with the physical world, and at the end of it, all of a sudden, Chris Kattan's ghost appears to save the day by pulling a lever to sort of open a hatch. And I'm just like, oh, all right. Well, that's like a true Deus Ex Machina. That is like you've just, the machine is, and it's just.
It's a blink. It's kind of a blink, and you'll miss it as well.
Well, I did have to flash back. I was like, "What the? What was that?
How did they get? Yeah, how did they get out? One of them gets out, and then the other's trapped in. Like, what? I would just live. I get that they both kind of have to survive because they've got nothing to do with the burning of the inmates. So they're there in error. They're not supposed to be there. Technically, in some fashion, because she's the secretary of her boss, who was invited,
who's a descendant,
yeah. So, but then if that's the case, like, wouldn't the ghost know? Wouldn't the ghost be aware of this? Wouldn't they maybe jettison them in some way? Or
more than that, why do the ghosts care? At that point, you're just like, well, I've got you here now, so I'm already, I'm going to kill you, so you might as well kill everybody. They killed Jeffrey Rush, and he wasn't related to anybody.
I thought he was. I thought he was one of the. One of them. No. Okay.
So it's just the guests. So yeah, it's not really. That sort of like.
So it's not like they're getting revenge specifically on those people.
That was the idea, but.
Just like, fuck it, let's have a party.
At this point, they're just like,
I'm here for the party. Yeah. Murder party.
So I don't think the revenge plot doesn't really work. The twists, repeated twists of like, he's dead, he's not dead, she's dead, she's not dead. Is a bit much. It's just this film is very over designed. However, I would say again, there is a sense of fun to this film. I kind of enjoy these Dark Castle films. This and 13 Ghosts. I mean, the 13 Ghosts one is also so massively over designed and has one of the silliest concepts ever. If you ever watched it, it's actually got some really good ghost designs and some really sort of creepy stuff. But the whole thing takes place in a glass house, a literal glass house. And there is a line in it where someone goes, "Well, how do you go to the bathroom?" And no one answers, and it's just sort of left hanging in the air for the rest of the film. And everyone's like, "Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Like, how do you go for a shower?" Like, I'm really confused as to how this house works.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually quite similar in a way, isn't it?
Oh,
House on Haunted Hill, like these unlikely people end up at this house. There's ghosts. They've got to use unusual tactics to get out, and there's guy constantly shouting and warning them. There's quite a lot of similarities.
They'd be a good or bad actual double feature, to be perfectly honest.
maybe.
Yeah. But anyway, this is House on Haunted Hill. So really, let's wrap up on that then. So, sure. House on Haunted Hill. So we've had 1959 and we've had 1999. two films. I think we both sort of agree that they are, as you said, they're not perfect by any stretch. But of the two, which would you prefer?
It's a tough one. Like I know we turned into like the 1999 one, but it is kind of my era of when I was getting into those sort of things and those sort of films. I think a lot of this. I think both of them have a lot of similar problems as well. There's it's like this one is taking itself a little bit. The 1999 is taking itself a bit more seriously, and it's a bit more like the try and use things out, trying the CGI, much like William Castle did. So you've got to appreciate them. Kind of, the reach extends their grasp, or whatever you call it, and yeah. But then I do quite like the kookiness. I like that it's longer and it has more.
There's a bit more to it. There's more meat on the bone of it.
Yeah, there's a bit more meat. There's a bit more of that. Again, it's not necessarily what I wanted from the premise, but I think there are other films that do that. Maybe something like Would You Rather with Jeffrey Combs.
Yes, that's a very good film.
Is kind of that. So so I guess we've had that elsewhere. So again, I'll get out of my own way. I don't think that the 1999 version is as charming.
That's my problem.
Yeah. I appreciate the effects. I appreciate the ideas. I like that they go full pelt with the ghosts. And they don't hold back. I love the scene where like Jeffrey Rush is going back to his mate who's like doing all this stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, how's she doing this? I don't know how she's working, because they keep blaming each other. Like, it's definitely you. No, it's you.
Yeah.
It's you. And then he's like, he goes back and he's actually got a guy behind everything, and then he just finds it with his face all off.
Yeah, his head's at the top half. He's been scooped out like a melon. Like it's a good effect. I mean, there's some good bloody scenes in the 99 version.
And I think it. I kind of again. I don't think I was expecting it to be as gruesome as well, because of the first one is quite playful. It's a really tough decision. I think I'm gonna go with the original. Just because I think Vincent Price, there's like, as much as I love Jeffrey Rush and all the other actors in there's nobody of that caliber.
Yeah.
And nobody has that charm. Like even Jeffrey Rush is a bit shouty and a bit, and it's sometimes a little bit too much. I think Famke Janssen's playing almost more of a Vincent Price-esque style of character.
Yes.
And a bit more cold and calculating. But I think the original, like we said, it's fun, it's kooky, it's charming, and I don't think it's necessarily something you get today or in modern cinema, because it's a unique time capsule of that time, and it doesn't make sense, and it's ludicrous, and it's you could pull it apart and you can make fun of it. But still, there's something about all the different pieces that really it kind of doesn't work. But the power of the performances and the belief that this will change cinema and it'll be a new way of watching film. It kind of powers you through. Again, it's short, it's sweet, doesn't stick around, it gets all its points across. I think the characters, for the most part, are, I think I don't know. I think the characters for both are pretty similar. They are both lacking a bit of depth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I have to go for the original. But I did really enjoy the 1999 one. But again, it has a lot of the same problems. But I think, like, I kind of forgive the effects a bit more in that one as well. Like, at this point, in 1999, we've had Terminator, Jurassic Park, and things like. So we should be at a point where, a 2D ink blot looks good and scary and it's powerful. It's doing something. But I do think the practical effects in there are good as well. I like some of those spookier aspects as well, like the Jeffrey Combs and the asylum stuff. But yeah, I don't know. There's something. There's such a unique charm that I don't think you could recapture in a remake or a reboot or something like that.
It seems I agree with what you're saying actually, because I think the charm is what carries it for me in that first one. And it's just because there's some sort of like, you know, it isn't you know, predominantly the Vincent Price character,
sure,
but his chemistry with his wife and stuff, and some of the sort of like their interactions are so good and so sort of like poisonous, but in a sort of like, you know, that charming way. And the Pritchard character in the original is just I don't know. There's something about it that's just more fun. That sort of like, you know, as you say, it's a death curse kind of character. Like he's clearly like, you know, there's a meanness to the '99 version, which I don't mind, because again I do enjoy that '99 version for many reasons. It's like you say, it's got some great gore in it. There's some relatively good jump scares and there's some good interesting bits. But like you say, it doesn't quite cohere together to form something. It doesn't quite have the charm. And like you say, that fight, the finale is kind of sort of where you're going like, no, this isn't what you should be doing. There's a better version of this. And it is almost one of those things where you'd say that, you know, run the tests. What does this look like, this weird ink block thing? And someone should have said, someone should have said, this doesn't work.
Yeah. Can we do something else?
Can we do something simpler? Can we do something else that's more effective? And you know, I'm sure it would have. I mean, there was a cut scene that's on apparently on the DVD where Ali Larter's character falls through the floors and falls into the fire, where the fire took place, and is attacked by corpses breaking through the ash.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I'm like, why is that still not in the film? Like, that's like a really good idea. Like, that's what it should be. Like the ash coming to life, like those sorts of things. The house itself coming back. Have you ever seen the film Monster House?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Like, you know, the house itself should start to twist and like you said, when the floor explodes and stuff. Like that's the stuff I was enjoying. And I think that's a better version of this.
Yeah, make the house itself like a weapon. Like
you are trapped inside this thing.
Yeah, like the bulbs are popping out and the water's spraying on you, or the sewage, and like the floors.
There's things coming up, and you can get like Jeffrey Combs coming out and or whatever, like, you know. So I think there's a version of it that would have been really good, but it's just disappointing. But like I say, the kookiness, I like going back to this word. There's a sort of like a quaint kookiness to the 59 version that I just really enjoy. Like even at the end of it, where I'm like that, you know, he killed his wife and her lover, and may or may not have used his lover's skeleton in order to kill his wife. Like there's a real sort of like, you know, there's some twistedness in that one, but I'm still like, yeah, but it's fun.
Yeah, and I think because of its charm and its kookiness and all the words we've been using to describe it, I think we're a lot more forgiving of the problems and the faults and the holes in the logic and stuff not working or working. Like, you know, the blanks in his gun. How did he make that pot explode when he shot it? We don't get an explanation. We'll have to do it ourselves. We'll have to, make up our own headcanon on how that works and why that works. And I'm sure there's a lot of kind of videos and articles about how it all worked and how he made it happen, or did he? And I think because like you were saying, it's not, the 99 one is not as cohesive. That last sequence, the chase sequence with the ink blot and all that other stuff, there is some moments where it is like there's a bit of playfulness to it, like when Jeffrey Rush is trying to open the doors, he's trying to find the switch, and he's like, he's trying them all, it's not working, he throws something at one lever and he's like, oh, he did it right. And then like there's moments of genius and there's moments of fun like that, but I think they're too far. I think it needs to either lean one way or the other. It either needs to go super serious or it needs to lean into that kooky camp. And the 99 one just kind of just it's in a middle ground and no man's land.
It wavers over both lines, doesn't it? Like there's scenes where it tries to be serious, and then you've got another scene where you've got Jeffrey Combs dressed in a three-piece suit bouncing a ball. You know, you're like, what are you?
What's your identity? What are you trying to be?
Yeah, what are you trying to be? And I think if it'd have lent into, like say one or the other, if anything, I'd like it to have lent into the camp kookiness. I think it would have been an absolute, it would have become like a cult classic. We'd have gone like, oh, it's nuts, and it really went for it. I think you're right. I think it would have had that fun.
And I also think horror comedy is always a really difficult balance as well to get right. And I think so many films flop. It's either too scary and it's not funny, or it's too funny and it's not scary. I think there's an absolute tightrope to walk for that. And I think, unfortunately, the 99 version didn't do it anywhere near as well as the 59 version.
Yes, no, I agree with that. One thing I thought about, because this sort of one of the conversations that you and I think we've had is we are going to be revisiting Vincent Price in the future.
Oh yeah.
But one of the things that's coming up in the future is obviously they're doing the Fall of the House of Usher.
Yes,
and obviously Vincent Price did the House of Usher with Roger Corman, and it's going to be Mike Flanagan that's going to do it for Netflix.
Ria's favorite.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I'm a big fan of Mike. We did it earlier in the year. We did sort of,
You did.
Now that's why I call Mike Flanagan volumes 1 and 2. And I couldn't get past when I was watching both of these. I was thinking like, how would I do this now? If I was to, it's another 20 years, what would I do? How could I do this? And I couldn't get past the fact that like Mike Flanagan doing this as one of his sort of, House on Haunted Hill, or the haunting of the haunting of Bly Manor, or the haunting of Hill House. I could see this being a similar thing. Maybe not an 8 or 9 episode thing, like reduce it down in episodes, but like have people locked in, and like that thing where there is that he could do. He does really well with those casts, doesn't he? That sort of like ensemble cast things. But in the meantime, there is a ghost in the background, or there is something going on, or like you've got to look in the background, or there's different. Like I could see the Mike Flanagan version of this doing that thing of leaning more into the serious and doing it very successfully. I don't know. What do you think?
I've seen a few bits of Mike Flanagan. I saw Hush. I really liked Hush.
Yes, that's got good.
And I liked Doctor Sleep for the most part. I've not seen the extended one. I've heard I'm not sure if that's better or worse.
It's extended. Let me put it that way. It's longer.
Okay. we'll leave it there. But yeah, like I've seen his stuff. I've enjoyed his stuff, and there's still a lot of things I need to delve into his back catalogue a bit more, I think. But yeah, I think there's definitely, like, I'm always up for new interpretations, but you've got to bring something new, like these remakes and reboots and redos. Like with the Spider-Man in the MCU, they went in a totally different direction, and it's mostly worked for the most part. I think I quite enjoy that version. Again, we don't get some of the stuff that we're used to with Spider-Man, but we got something we'd never seen before. So, Spider-Man and the Avengers, who knew we'd ever see that? So, and all this, and multiple Spider-Men meeting all other Spider-Men, and all the villains teaming up from different movies. Nobody ever thought we'd get that. So it's incredible that they even did that. But as long as you're going in with an actual idea, like look at Prey, for example. Like I always said with Predator, like change the time zone. It's got to be. You're going to still have the standard, human ingenuity beats, tech and strength of this alien. You're going to have that, but just change the time, like samurais, Vietnam, whatever, like any of those.
You mean like the comics have done repeatedly?
Exactly.
Really well.
Like literally, I said that on one of the podcasts. I did a top 5 Predator comics, and I went, just do these ideas.
They're really good.
Victorian London Predator, go for it.
Easy.
Show me that. Easy. Big, like standing atop a Big Ben, holding a big skull and part of a spine.
Queen Victoria's head. There you go. Done. Amazing.
Yeah, like I've always said that, but yeah, just I think James Bond should also go back to the 60s. That's my thing, because I think
I agree with that.
I that's the only thing. That's the only way I think you can get away with the character being as unlikable as he is. Because you can go, oh well, it was the time. So he's a misogynist and he's a sex fiend and all this other stuff. You can kind of go, okay, it was the '60s. So and maybe you can play a little joke on that, or spin it a little bit. But yeah, there's loads of ideas, and whether Hollywood will ever do any of them is probably unlikely. We'll see. I'm pretty certain we'll get another Michael Myers film very soon. After this one, after the one that ends.
I was going to say the one we're getting very soon. I mean, the one that would literally come out.
No, the one after that. Halloween starts again. I think that's what they'll call it. Or they'll call it the final chapter or some shit, and it'll be like, that's not going to be the final chapter.
Yeah, well,
it's never the final chapter.
We had, how many of these guys have had the final chapter? Friday the 13th part 4 was the final chapter, and then so was 9.
And what was it? Final Friday was that one?
Yeah, final Friday. Yeah, that was because Jason Goes to Hell. Final Friday.
Yeah.
That was 9. Yeah. And then
Freddy's dead.
Freddy's dead. Freddy's dead, and then he came back for a new nightmare. So they've all gone and come back.
Yeah. No, nobody ever dies. Nobody ever dies. No one stays dead for long.
Yeah. But I was going to say, of these, you see about the remakes again, like what I talked about on Stories Out of Time and Space, a sister podcast. We talked about like The Fly, going back to Vincent Price. That's a really good example. You go, oh, there's a 58 version of that, like 50. I think earlier than that.
Yeah.
There's a 50s version of that, which is actually kind of good, and I do enjoy that film as well. But then, Cronenberg comes in. It's like, I'm not doing that. I'm doing my version of this body horror nightmare with Jeff Goldblum, and it's like you say, you've come in within purpose, and they are vastly different films, but they are still the same story, And it's like that's what I love about those sort of like when you say you come in with a take and you go like, yeah, cool, do that. That sounds amazing.
I think it's just studios need to be brave enough to take more risks. I think, and there's playing it safe, and then there's just doing the same thing over and over again. And to some degree, if that works, if that's popular, fair enough. I get it. There's a lot of Fast and Furious films. They seem to be, pretty popular, make a lot of money. They seem to be the same thing mostly. But
yeah, I think we go through cycles. Though that's the thing. We go through cycles of IP. What I would say was IP versus auteur. We in the 90s and even in the 80s and stuff, there was an era where you sort of like a director could turn up at a studio and just be like, I want to make this, and it'd be like some crackpot film, and they'd be like, fine, because it's made by David Cronenberg, or the name is what you literally sold it on, the name. But now it's about the IP, like the director's almost irrelevant, which is why I always find it hilarious when they're sort of like Marvel go like, we're bringing in this director for diversity and their creative direction. You go, oh, cool, and then they make a film. You're like, it's just like the last one.
They've got a real take. They're going to spin it, and
they've got a real take on this. It's the Marvel take, and it's very
the same. Yeah, but then who knows how much that is munched up by the Marvel machine.
Exactly.
They might there's a lot of directors who don't get on with that Marvel method. Let's call it. A lot of people have walked away, like bloody
Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright, and director of Wonder Woman, what was her name?
Patty Jenkins.
She walked away. A lot of big name.
I wish he'd walked away from Wonder Woman too, but
I think a lot of people think that as well.
Yeah.
But I think she got too. I think the producers gave her too much freedom.
Yeah,
I think we see that a lot when a director does pretty well. They go, just do whatever you want.
It's the Batman Returns. It's the Batman Returns effect.
Yeah. And arguably the Batman and Robin effect as well.
Yeah, exactly. Batman Returns is always my favorite, and we should really wrap up because we're going to look at these remakes.
We will go. Yeah, we will.
This idea of like Tim Burton makes Batman, and it was obviously quite heavily produced. It was controlled, but it's still this massive. And they do go like, make what you want. He's like, are you sure? Yeah, I want to see a Burton Batman. We've got Burger King or McDonald's knocking on the door for this. And he goes, like hold my beer, and he goes off and makes like the most Burton-esque. It's going to have like a twisted circus, a man penguin, Christopher Walken in the most sort of like deviant sort of form he's ever been in. Amazing.
We're going to drown babies. That's going to be the main plot point of the film, like the major kind of threat. Okay,
yeah. Batman's going to like literally sort of blow people up, without any real sort of like qualms. Yeah, like it's amazing. I love that film. I adore Batman Returns.
It's probably my favorite Batman film. I think I know it's not critically the best. I know for a fact it's not the best Batman film, but it is my favorite. Right? And I'm going to be covering it with Tonya and Andy this Christmas. So,
fantastic! I can't wait. Yeah, any film that opens with a baby being dumped into an icy river to Danny Elfman's amazing score.
Oh, that is a good score.
Beautiful score. And I remember watching it even as a youngster, and I'm like, I love this film. Straight off, I love everything about this film. It's amazing.
It's worth rewatching at least once a year. I think for me, it has to. It's up there with my, RoboCops and Spider-Man and all these other kind of films, True Romances, Reservoir Dogs. It's really up there for me as one of my favorites. Yeah, again, a lot of holes in it, a lot of problems.
Oh yeah.
But I love it. I love it for what it is. But yeah, anyway, we'll talk
wrap
about
up on that, right? So we'll talk about that another day. So, but we will be back together at some point. I'll be going on Secret Bores to talk about Vincent Price some more in the future.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, Spider-Man and the Secret Bores. So we're going to do a clone bore. So it's not unlike this. So we're going to compare Dr. Phibes, the abominable Dr. Phibes, and Theatre of Blood, because they are quite similar in very, very many ways. But yes, we'll get into that. And that'll be probably the beginning of the new year, sometime at the beginning of the new year. We'll organise that and get that done. But I'm looking forward to it because those are some fun films as well.
Yeah, I do love those. They're two of my favorite Vincent Price films. I'm very much looking forward to those. But how can people find you? Where can people find you?
How can people find me? So I'm on Twitter at Dan_Bores. Instagram, it's SpiderDan Secret Bores. On Facebook, it's at Secret Bores. And you can also go to my website, which has links for everything, my guest spots, collaborations, episodes, you name it. It's all there. And it's SpiderDanandthesecretbores.com. That's BORES. And head over there and you can listen to all my good stuff. I got a big catalog now. I'm working towards my 150th episode very soon. So 149 is out tomorrow. So the week after will be 150th. And again, it'll be me, Rhea, and Tonya, and we're going to be looking at Brandon Lee's The Crow.
Oh, that's another cracking film, that is.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, that's one where maybe, I thought about doing that as a retrospective to do the whole series of films.
Do you want to?
No, I did, and then I watched them and was just like, oh, yeah. I think I'll just stick with the first one. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I watched City of Angels and I went, that's it. I went
all the way.
Oh, you're a braver man than me.
Yeah, it's like sort of like every now and then just slapping yourself in the face and just being like, do you want to watch another one? Smack. Yeah, I do.
You're torturing yourself, just torturing yourself.
Yeah, I do it for my art, is what I do. Yes. I do it for my art.
True artist.
Yes, but there will be links there. There'll be a link down to Dan's website down below. So do go check it out. There's so much on there. And, the content is fantastic and covers an awful lot of stuff.
Too kind. You're too kind, Scott.
That is great. I do enjoy it. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you are enjoying what we're doing on 20th Century Towers, go leave a review. Get on your podcast catcher, leave a review, preferably 5 stars, but any old review will do. I really appreciate anything feedback. I ain't got to take it, so leave it. But if you really like what we're doing, go check out our Patreon. There'll be a link down below for that as well. That's www.patreon.com/20CGmedia. And there's a whole host of stuff on there. I do 30-minute thoughts every month. And then me and my partner in crime, Julian Darius, are trekking through the Twilight Zone week by week, going from episode to episode. And that has been an absolute blast. I'm the newbie. He's the experienced watcher. We're going to be up to season 3, so we're really getting through that now, which is fantastic.
Wow, you've gone through them all. That's amazing.
Oh, it's great. It's been an experience because there are some absolute doozies. There's some real classics, and then there's some others that have been a bit of a disappointment. But there is some absolute. Like, this is like 59 to 62. I think we're on 62 now. Yeah, there's some episodes I've literally gone back and watched again. Like, there's some really good stuff. So Twilight Zone's definitely up there now as growing in favor for me. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Dan, thank you very much for coming on and sitting through both House on Haunted Hill films. Appreciate it. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and we should talk again soon.